I never believed in second chances until the day I woke up in someone else's skin, staring at my own face in the mirror, screaming silently because the voice that came out wasn't mine. It was the body of Senator Harlan Voss, the man who'd ruined my life. And in that moment, I knew inheritance wasn't about dusty shelves or yellowed pages. It was about stealing back what was taken, no matter whose blood stained the pages. But the real hook? The old bookstore I'd just claimed as my own hid a tenant who'd whispered the spell that swapped us. And now, with his power in my veins, I'd make him beg for the death he denied me. The rain-slick streets of Brooklyn smelled like wet concrete and regret as I pulled up to the crumbling facade of Voss & Sons booksellers. It was a Thursday in late October 2023, the kind of gray afternoon where the city felt like it was holding its breath. My father, Elias Voss, God rest his miserly soul, had croaked 2 weeks earlier from a heart attack in his ratty apartment above the shop, leaving me this relic in his will. Me, Allison Voss, 32, freshly divorced, and scraping by as a freelance editor in a one-bedroom walk-up in Queens. We'd barely spoken in years. He was too busy nursing grudges against the world, and I was too busy pretending I didn't need his approval. The lawyer, a slick weasel named Mr.
Hargrove,
handed over the keys with a smirk that said, "Good luck,
kid.
This place is a money pit. Taxes alone would eat me alive." But selling it felt like erasing the last thread to the old man. So here I was, dodging potholes and memories, ready to gut the place for whatever scraps I could salvage. The sign above the door creaked in the wind, Voss & Sons. These sons, a bitter joke since I was the only spawn, and a girl at that. Inside, the air hit me like a tomb, stale paper and mildew, shelves sagging under tomes that hadn't seen daylight since the Nixon era. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light piercing the grimy windows. I flicked on the lights, a single bare bulb buzzing to life overhead, and that's when I heard it, a faint shuffle from the back room. "Hello." My voice echoed off the walls, sharper than I intended. No answer. Probably rats. Or ghosts. Dad always said the place was haunted by his mistakes, whatever the hell that meant. I started in the front, hauling boxes of moldy harlequins and outdated encyclopedias toward the door for the dumpster. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the chill. The divorce had left me with biceps from all those empowerment gym sessions that felt more like punishment. By hour 3, I'd cleared half the floor space, revealing warped floorboards and a faint outline of something etched into the wood, a circle with symbols I couldn't place, like amateur witchcraft from a bad fantasy novel. That's when the shuffle came again, closer this time, from behind the curtained-off storage area. I froze, heart thumping like a bass drum. "Who's there?" "This is private property now." Silence. Then a dry cough, like leaves scraping pavement. I grabbed a heavy dictionary for a weapon, pathetic, I know, and yanked back the curtain. There he was, an old man, hunched in a threadbare armchair amid stacks of yellowed newspapers, his face a map of wrinkles under a shock of white hair. He looked up slowly, eyes like chipped obsidian, unblinking. "Miss Voss," he rasped, voice like gravel in a blender. "Elias said you'd come." "Name's Gideon." "Keep the peace here." I lowered the book an inch. "Keep the peace? You're squatting in my inheritance. Get out before I call the cops." He didn't move, just steepled his gnarled fingers, watching me like I was the intruder. Something about him prickled my skin, not fear, exactly, but the unease of stumbling into a stranger's confessional. Gideon claimed he'd been Dad's tenant for decades, paying rent in favors rather than cash. Stories, he called them. Secrets whispered over midnight scotch while the city slept. Dad had been a hoarder of more than books. He'd collected grudges like fine wine. And Gideon was the cork keeping them bottled. "Your father owed me," the old man said, not rising. But blood calls to blood.
Sit.
Hear the tale before you toss an old fool to the curb. Against my better judgment, I sat on a crate, the dictionary in my lap like a shield. What spilled from Gideon's lips over the next hour wasn't a tale, it was a goddamn indictment. Dad hadn't just run a failing bookstore, he'd been a fixer for the elite, burying scandals for Brooklyn's power players back in the 80s and 90s. Blackmail files hidden in false panels. Favors traded like poker chips. And the biggest chip? Senator Harlan Voss, no relation. Thank God. But a name that twisted my gut. Harlan, the golden boy of New York politics. Rising from councilman to state senate on a platform of family values and clean streets. But Gideon had the dirt. Photos. Ledgers. Proof that Harlan had covered up a hit and run in '92 that killed a homeless vet. Dad took the fall, falsified his own alibi. Served 6 months for obstructing. All to keep Harlan's ascent greased. Why? I demanded, voice cracking. Gideon leaned forward, breath sour with age. Elias was in love once. With Harlan's wife, Lydia. She begged him to help. Said Harlan was a monster, that the accident was no accident. Elias did it for her ghost, after she ate her pills in '95, whispering your name like a curse. My mother. Lydia Voss. Though she'd never taken Dad's name. The woman who'd vanished from my life when I was 5, leaving crayon drawings and a scent of lavender that faded like her sanity.
Suicide.
The papers said. Overdose on antidepressants. I'd grown up blaming Dad's cold silences, his endless rants about ungrateful bitches. But this was betrayal etched in bone. I stormed out into the rain, Gideon's laughter chasing me like smoke. That night, in my Queens apartment, I couldn't sleep. Harlan Voss, now 68, still strutting the Capitol with his Botox smile and his Voss for Progress billboards, hadn't just stolen my family's name's honor. He'd stolen my mother, piece by bloody piece. And Dad, he'd shouldered the blame, rotting in a cell while Harlan climbed. The injustice burned hotter than cheap whiskey. By morning, resolve hardened in my chest. I'd sell the bookstore, sure, but not before digging deeper. Back at the shop, Gideon was waiting, a pot of bitter coffee steaming on a hot plate. Knew you'd return, he said.
Nos magnis. Just certainty.
The real inheritance ain't the deed. It's downstairs. Downstairs? The trapdoor I'd glimpsed yesterday, camouflaged under a rug. Gideon pried it open with a crowbar, revealing a narrow staircase plunging into darkness. Flashlight in hand, I followed him down, the air thickening with the scent of earth and something metallic, like old coins. At the bottom, a basement vault, concrete walls lined with safety deposit boxes, each labeled with names I recognized from headlines: mobsters, mayors, media moguls. Dad's vault of vices. But in the center, on a scarred oak table, sat the oddity, a leather-bound book, no bigger than a Bible, its cover embossed with that same circular symbol from the floorboards. The ledger, Gideon called it. Not of debts, but of souls. He flipped it open, pages crackling like dry leaves, revealing entries in Dad's spidery script, names, dates, transactions. Harlan's page was the thickest, dozens of entries, each detailing a swap. Not money.
Souls.
What the hell is this? I whispered, tracing the ink that seemed to shift under my finger. Gideon's eyes gleamed. Your father dabbled in the old ways. Not magic. Mind, science twisted by desperation. Nanotech. They call it now. But back then, experimental serum from a black site lab, smuggled out by a vet Harlan ran down. Ingest it with intent, and it rewires the mind. Body swaps, if you will.
Temporary.
At first. Permanent if you bind it with blood. Bullshit. A cult fanfic for bitter old men. But as Gideon read aloud from Harlan's entry, detailing the 92 swap where Dad had borrowed a junkie's body to take the fall, enduring the detox hell in a county lockup while Harlan partied, I felt the room spin. Proof tumbled out, vials of iridescent blue liquid in a hidden compartment, syringes sterilized and waiting. Dad hadn't just protected Harlan, he'd become him. Briefly.
To shield the lie.
And in the process, lost Mom to the grief. Rage boiled over. That bastard walks free while my family crumbled. I snatched a vial, the glass cool against my palm. Gideon didn't stop me. Intent.
Girl.
That's the key. Visualize the vessel. Drink deep. And the ledger claims its due. I laughed, bitter and broken.
Due?
Harlan's due a reckoning. That night, alone in the shop, I uncorked the vial. The liquid tasted like copper and regret, sliding down my throat like liquid fire. I pictured Harlan, his smug face on TV, his tailored suits, his wife's haunted eyes in faded photos. Sleep came swift, dreamless. I woke to silk sheets and a king-sized bed in a penthouse overlooking the East River. Sunlight pierced floor-to-ceiling windows, and when I sat up, my hands, manicured, veined with age, weren't mine. I stumbled to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and there he was, Harlan Voss, staring back, his reflection mouthing my silent scream. I'd done it.
Swapped.
In his body, with his life. Panic clawed first, how to reverse it, but then power surged. Intoxicating. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, alerts from aides. A calendar jammed with fundraisers and filibusters. I was him now. Senator Allison Voss, ready to rewrite the script. The first days blurred into a high-wire act. I locked myself in the penthouse, claiming flu to cancel meetings, binging Harlan's files on his encrypted laptop. The man was a fortress of filth, bribes funneled through packs, affairs with interns half his age, a slush fund for silencing whistleblowers. And Mom? A footnote in a deleted email chain, Lydia Voss. Handled after she threatened to go public about the hidden run. Dad's swap had bought time, but Harlan had tied up loose ends permanently. Betrayal sank deeper. I'd idolized politicians as a kid, dreaming of journalism exposing the rot. Instead, I'd become the rot, courtesy of a dead father's folly. But opportunity knocked. Harlan's gala that weekend. A black tie affair at the Met for Voss for Progress. His wife, Evelyn, remarried name. But still Voss in my vengeful heart, would be there.
No.
Evelyn had died years ago. Cancer. Harlan's current arm candy was a trophy named Tessa, 25 and vacant-eyed. I dressed in his tux, tailored Italian wool that hung wrong on my unfamiliar frame, and descended into the fray. The gala was a circus of champagne flutes and false smiles, donors air-kissing like vipers. I navigated it clumsily at first, Harlan's baritone graveling out small talk, but muscle memory kicked in. "Senator, your bill on housing reform, brilliant," gushed a real estate baron whose company Harlan had shielded from eviction scandals. By the dessert course, I'd isolated key players, the DA who'd buried Dad's case, the judge who'd signed off on the plea. Whispers in ears, veiled threats disguised as toasts. Remember 92? Loose lips sink ships. Or senators. Their faces paled, excuses bubbling. Power wasn't just money, it was the fear of exposure. But the real prize, Gideon. I'd texted him from Harlan's burner. How? I don't know. But the swap carried echoes of intent. He met me in a shadowed alcove, smelling of pipe tobacco. "It worked," I hissed, Harlan's voice booming unnaturally soft. "Now reverse it," Gideon chuckled, low and knowing. "Reversal costs, Allison. The ledger demands balance. You wear his skin, he wears yours."
But yours.
Occupied now. Occupied? Dread coiled. Back in the penthouse, I hacked Harlan's security cams, easy with his passwords scrawled in a drawer. There I was, my body, shambling through the bookstore like a puppet, eyes vacant, mumbling Dad's old curses. Harlan's mind puppeteering me, trapped in the swap's limbo. He'd woken in my skin, disoriented, and Gideon, that sly bastard, had helped him, feeding him the ledger's secrets. The old man was playing both sides.
Tenant?
More like puppeteer. He'd orchestrated this, using Dad's death as bait, luring me into the vial to settle his own score. Gideon had been the vet's brother, the hit-and-run's forgotten ghost, nursing revenge for decades. Dad's favors? Payment for silence, while Gideon plotted.
Now,
with Harlan in my body, he had leverage, exposed the senator as a body-snatching fraud. Or worse, force a confession. Tension ratcheted. Harlan Shell, had to act fast. Sleepless nights poring over the ledger, decoding reversal rights, blood from both vessels, mixed under a full moon, poured on the symbol upstairs. But Harlan, in my skin, was closing in. My phone is now lit with texts from me. "Allison? What the fuck is this? Meet at the shop. Or I go public."
Public.
The word ignited fury. He'd destroy my life, my name, my face, to save his.
No.
I'd burn his empire first. The controversial calls came swift. First, leak the files. Anonymous drops to every major outlet, NYD, Post, even Fox for good measure. By morning, headline screamed, Senator Voss, decades of corruption exposed. Harlan's aides scrambled, but the damage stuck. Donors fled. Hearings loomed. In his body, I played the outraged patriarch, press conferences decrying deepfakes, but the doubt festered. Second, the personal gut punch. I confronted Tessa in the penthouse, Harlan's voice dripping venom. "You're done. Sign the NDA or the tapes go viral." Her wide eyes, trembling lips, God. The power rush was vile, addictive. She packed a bag, vanished into the dawn, another loose end tied with coercion. Was it justice? Or just becoming the monster? Gideon watched from the shadows, via video call. "You're unraveling the thread."
Girl.
but Harlan's weaving tighter in your skin. He's rallying your friends, that ex-husband of yours. Mark thinks you're cracking up.
Mark.
The divorce had been mutual exhaustion, but hearing Harlan poison him twisted the knife. Betrayal layered on betrayal. My life. Puppeteered by a killer. Climax brewed on the full moon. November's chill biting through the bookstore's walls. I'd lured Harlan, in my body, with promises of reversal. He arrived twitchy, my curves awkward on his lanky frame, eyes wild with Harlan's arrogance. Fix this. You witch, he snarled in my voice. Gideon lurked in the basement, vial in hand. We circled the table, blood drawn, his from a pricked finger. Mine, Harlan's vein, sliced deeper for spite. The chant from the ledger, guttural and archaic, filled the air. But as the blood mingled, dripping onto the symbol, truth cracked open like a fault line. Flash, not 92, but 95. Mom's overdose?
Staged.
Harlan hadn't killed her. She'd faked it. Fleeing with Dad's help to a cabin in the Adirondacks, rewriting her life free of the monster. But Dad, guilt-ridden, confessed to Gideon, the real architect. The hit and run? Gideon's setup. To frame Harlan and force Dad's hand. The serum? Gideon's invention. Tested on his own brother. The vet, who hadn't died but swapped into obscurity. Living as a shadow. Twist. I wasn't the victim. Dad had known. Covered for Gideon, out of twisted loyalty. Letting me believe the lie to protect me. Harlan, innocent of Mom's death, just a pawn in Gideon's long game. The swap? Gideon's endgame, to pit us. Drain our blood for his immortality right. Hidden in the ledger's final page. Horror dawned as the symbol glowed, not reversing, but binding. Bodies lurched, minds snapping back. Harlan's flailing. But Gideon lunged, syringe plunging into my neck, mid-swap. Vision blurred, voices overlapping. My own scream, Harlan's roar, Gideon's cackle. I woke strapped to the table. Body mine again, but weak. Serum's echo thrumming. Harlan, freed, hovered. Face ashen, not vengeful, but broken.
He
lied to us both. Gideon stood over us. Rejuvenated, wrinkles smoothing, eyes alight with stolen youth. Blood calls to blood, he mocked. Your family's debts, paid in full. The controversial decision, mercy or murder. Harlan's hand trembled on a loose scalpel. I nodded. Once. He struck, not fatal, but enough to shatter Gideon's knee, toppling the old fraud. We bound him, called the cops anonymously, files uploaded as insurance. Headlines shifted, reclusive bookstore owner, mastermind of decades-long blackmail ring. Epilogue blurred into therapy sessions and Senate inquiries. Harlan resigned, a pariah, but alive, haunted, like me. Mom surfaced months later, alive in that cabin, tears and apologies flowing like rain.
reunion?
Bittersweet poison. I'd saved her, exposed the rot. But at what cost? Gideon's peace shattered lives. And mine bore the scars, nights waking in sweat, wondering if the swap left echoes. Was it revenge? Justice? Or just trading one monster for another? Readers argue in comment sections. But in the quiet of Voss and Sons, now mine, truly, I shelve the ledger. Its pages blank. Inheritance isn't given, it's claimed. And some secrets? Better left buried. The weeks after the swap settled like fog over the Hudson, thick, disorienting, laced with the metallic tang of what-ifs. My body felt foreign at first, every step a reminder of Harlan's heavier gait, his broader shoulders that had carried decades of lies. I moved through the bookstore like a ghost, reorganizing shelves not for profit but penance, as if alphabetizing Austen could erase the vials burn in my throat. Gideon rotted in Rikers, awaiting trial on charges that barely scratched his sins: fraud, extortion, maybe manslaughter if the DA connected the dots to that '92 accident. But immortality? That stayed our secret, a whisper between Harlan and me over burner phones. Harlan? No. I couldn't call him that anymore. To his face. It was Senator, a title dripping irony, reached out first. A terse email. Coffee? Neutral ground. No cameras. We met at a dingy diner in Midtown, the kind with Formica counters scarred by decades of hashed-out deals. He slid into the booth opposite me, looking diminished in a cashmere sweater.
No tie. No armor.
My face on him. Wait.
No.
We'd swapped back, but the echoes lingered.
His eyes, though,
were his, sharp, calculating, now cracked with vulnerability. Allison, he started, voice rough from disuse. Public speaking was his weapon, silence, his new foe. What Gideon did. It's not just theft. It's violation. I sipped black coffee, scalding, watching him fidget with a napkin. Violation. The word hung. Inadequate. I'd worn his skin, pissed in his marble bathrooms, fielded calls from lovers whose voices purred familiarity I didn't earn. And he had paraded my body through my life, awkward brunches with Mark, fumbling my freelance deadlines, even scrolling my therapy app, reading confessions I'd buried deep. Tell me about Lydia, I said instead, cutting to the bone.
Mom.
The name alone softened him, shoulders slumping. She was fire. Your mother. Met her at a rally in '89, anti-corruption march. Ironic now. I was the ambitious aide. She, the journalist sniffing scandals. We married fast. Thought we'd change the world. His laugh was hollow, shredded. But power chews you up. The hit-and-run god. It haunts. I was driving, drunk on victory after a primary win. The vet. He stepped out.
Or I swerved.
Doesn't matter. Elias buried it for her.
Not me.
Lydia begged him, said I'd self-destruct otherwise. Betrayal's layers peeled back. Dad hadn't protected Harlan. He'd protected Mom's illusion of the man she loved. The swap? A desperate bid to let Harlan confess, without consequence. Dad enduring the jail time as proxy. But Gideon, that spider, had spun it into his web, using the serum, his black market brew from Cold War experiments, to ensnare us all. Why didn't you fight harder? I pressed, voice low to avoid the waitress's ears. After she died, Harlan's jaw tightened. Because she did die.
Allison.
Not faked. Overdose was real. Grief.
Guilt.
The note. It blamed me. He slid a crumpled photocopy across the table. Yellowed edges. Harlan, you killed us both. Save our girl. I thought Elias helped her escape guilt, not life. Gideon twisted it. Planted the cabin story to bait you. The diner spun. Mom's suicide note. Public record. But I'd never read it. Too raw.
Now.
It gutted me.
No reunión.
No tearful embrace. just ashes scattered in the Hudson, per her wishes. My revenge, built on Gideon's smoke. We parted uneasy allies. Harlan promised to push reforms from the shadows, whistleblower protections, ethics bills as atonement. I nodded, but trust was a frayed rope. Back at the shop, the basement vault mocked me, boxes sealed but humming with ghosts. I burned what I could, ledgers, photos, smoke curling up the flue like escaping sins. The serum vials? Smashed under heel, shards glittering like fallen stars. No more swaps. No more debts. But tension simmered. Mark called that night, voice laced with concern I'd never earned in Harlan's hands. Allie, you've been
Off.
that Tenant story in the news, your dad's place. I fed him half-truths, the freelance grind masking deeper cracks. Our divorce had been clean, no kids, no shared debts, but Harlan's meddling left echoes, voicemails from my editor questioning, erratic submissions, a bounce check from my distracted oversight. Betrayal from afar. My life puppeteered while I wore a stranger's sins. Sleep evaded, replaced by fever dreams, Gideon's cackle, Mom's lavender scent mingling with copper blood. I woke gasping. The bookstore's creaks a symphony of paranoia. Was the swap truly reversed? Whispers at the edges, flashes of Harlan's memories, a mistress's laugh, a backroom deal sealed with a handshake. Or mine, leaking into him, the sting of Mark's goodbye, the hollow of empty inboxes. Decision time loomed, controversial as a loaded gun. Gideon's trial was set for January, but his lawyers, sharks on retainer from old favors, filed motions to suppress the ledger as inadmissible fiction. Without the serum proof, he'd walk on technicalities, a free man to spin more webs. Harlan and I met again, this time in the bookstore's back room, shadows pooling like ink. We end it, I said, Harlan nodding grim.
But how?
Legal channels were clogged with his influence. Poison? Too clean for the monster. Exposure? Risky. Gideon's counterfiles could drag us all under. The plan coalesced over stale donuts. Infiltrate. Harlan, with his Senate pull, greased access to Riker's visitor logs. I posed as a niece, smuggling a microrecorder in my bra. The visit was a descent fluorescent hell, echoes of shouts bouncing off cinder blocks. Gideon looked diminished, jumpsuit hanging loose, but his eyes, still obsidian knives. Allison, dear, he crooned, chains rattling as he leaned in. Come to gloat? Or beg for the reversal's price? I smiled, my voice steady. Tell me why.
Gideon.
The vet, your brother. Was it worth it? His laugh echoed, dry as bones. Worth? Power's the only currency that endures. Elias thought love paid debts, Harlan. Ambition. You? Revenge's fool's gold. The serum? My brother's gift, dying in that alley. He whispered the formula, swapped his pain into oblivion. I perfected it for us, the forgotten. But you Vesses. You hoard it. The recorder words silently. He spilled names, dates, the serum's black site origins tied to MK Ultra holdovers. Motive, not just revenge, but ascension. Gideon's cult of outcasts, dosing elites to topple thrones from within. Harlan's swap, a test run for a bigger play. Senators, CEOs. Minds traded like stocks. I left shaking, tape burning in my pocket. Harlan leaked it to a trusted reporter. Pulitzer bait. Anonymous source. The story broke like thunder. Riker's inmate confesses to mind control conspiracy. Gideon's empire crumbled overnight, associates flipping. Feds raiding hidden labs. Trial accelerated, no immortality. Just a life sentence in solitary. But controversy brewed in the aftermath. Protests erupted, conspiracy nuts chanting "Boss cover-up" outside the shop, mistaking Harlan's resignation for my complicity. Picket lines accused me of elite collusion, signs scrawled with my face photoshopped onto puppet strings. Mark pulled away further. Whispers of instability from our shared circles. Even Harlan caught heat, his reforms dismissed as damage control. The dark tension peaked one stormy night, power flickering as thunder rattled the windows. A knock insistent, frantic. I opened to Harlan, drenched, eyes wild. "It's not over," he gasped, shoving inside. Gideon smuggled a message through his lawyer. The ledger. It wasn't the only copy. Panic surged. We tore through the basement. But the book was gone, swiped during my Riker stunt?
No.
Worse, Gideon had palmed a page during the chaos. The final right scrawled in code. "He'll bind from inside," Harlan muttered. Face ashen. "Use inmates. Dose the water. Turn Rikers into his army." Insanity. But the serum's echo thrummed in my veins. A warning pulse. We drove to the prison under cover of night. Harlan's Senate badge flashing like a talisman. Bribes to guards. A shadowed cell block. Gideon waited, smirking through bars. A makeshift vial glinting in his palm. Contraband brew.
Potent as sin.
"You can't stop progress."
"Children," he taunted.
The fight was brutal. Fists, chains, screams echoing. I lunged for the vial. Harlan grappled Gideon. A shatter. Blue liquid spraying like accusation. But in the scuffle, truth reversed again. The page wasn't for binding souls, but unraveling them. Gideon's real play? Force a mass reversal, swap guards with inmates. Chaos to expose the system's rot. His forgotten rising. We subdued him. Vile shards crunching under boot. Feds swarmed at dawn. Gideon dragged away howling. But the cost? Harlan took a shank to the ribs, superficial. But blood seeped, staining my hands as I stanched it. "Family," he wheezed. Half joke, half question. "Not yet," I replied, but the word lingered. Spring thawed Brooklyn's bones by March 2024. But the chill in my marrow lingered. A souvenir from the basement's depths. The bookstore thrived. Ironically, curiosity seekers flocking for the Voss Curse tours. Snapping selfies amid the shelves like it was a theme park. I hired a manager, a no-nonsense widow named Rita, to handle the gawkers while I retreated to editing gigs. Words my armor against the world's glare. Harlan vanished into seclusion, a Connecticut estate where he penned memoirs no one would touch. Mom's ashes? I'd scattered them myself. In the Adirondacks' whisper of pines. Whispering apologies to wine that didn't answer. Gideon's trial was a media circus. Broadcast live from the courthouse steps. He took the stand in a tailored suit. Lawyers ployed to humanize the monster, spinning yarns of experimental therapy gone awry. The serum? Placebo for the paranoid, he claimed. But the tape played, his confession looping like a noose. Jurors shifted, faces hardening. Harlan and I watched from a safe house, screens flickering in the dim. Guilty on all counts, the foreman droned 6 hours later. Life.
No parole.
Gideon's eyes found the camera, locking on mine through pixels. Promise of unfinished business. Relief? Fleeting. The real storm brewed in the fallout. Conspiracy forums exploded. Allison Voss, swap queen or FBI plant. Doxing my address. Slashing tires on my beat-up Civic. Mark filed a restraining order, citing erratic behavior, his lawyer citing Harlan's impersonation as evidence of my breakdown. Betrayals aftertaste soured everything. Friends ghosted. Editors ghost-wrote my excuses. Yet Power's seduction whispered. Harlan called weekly. Voice steadier. The bill's moving. Ethics reform. Named for Lydia. Voss Lydia Act. Shielding families from fallout. Noble. But tainted. Weed cross lines, coercion. Leaks. That Rikers brawl verging on assault. Controversial? Hell. It was vigilante justice in an era of viral trials. Pundits debated. Heroes or hypocrites? My inbox overflowed. Fan mail from abuse survivors. Hate from purists screaming due process. The dark tension crested in May. A heat wave turning the city into a pressure cooker. A package arrived at the shop. No return address. Brown paper crinkling like old skin. Inside, a scorched ledger page. Symbols singed but legible. And a note in Gideon script. The dew is eternal. Drink. Or watch your worlds unravel. Panic clawed. The right, immortality's key. Bloodbound to the swapper's line. Gideon. From solitary. Had allies. A guard on payroll. Smuggling his will. Harlan and I convened at the estate. Air thick with scotch and suspicion. We destroy it, he urged. But I hesitated. What if reversal's echo lingered? Flashes still hit, his memory of a 95 fundraiser. My terror in his skin. Destroying the page might sever us. Or worse, bind eternally. Decision, confront. We traced the courier to a Queen's warehouse. Gideon's remnant cult, outcasts dosed on diluted serum. Minds frayed, eyes vacant. The raid was chaos, shadows lunging, vials shattering, my screams mingling with theirs. Harlan shielded me, taking a blow to the head that dropped him cold. In the melee, I faced the ringleader, a woman with my mother's eyes, dosed into delusion. You're her, she hissed. Syringe raised. The thief. Twist gutted. Not stranger. But Tessa, Harlan's ex-trophy. Radicalized in the fallout. Seeking balance through Gideon's gospel. She'd swiped the page during a conjugal visit, plotting to dose elites at a gala. Swap the powerful into poverty's skin. I wrestled the syringe away, pinning her. It's over. Cops swarmed. Sirens wailing. Tessa spat curses. But the fight drained her. Revelation cracking her facade. He promised equality, she sobbed. Your swap. It showed me the rot. Harlan stirred, groggy but alive, as medics loaded him. In the ER waiting room, fluorescent hum mocking our fragility, he gripped my hand. Family now. This time. I squeezed back. Maybe. Climax's dust settled into uneasy peace. The cult disbanded. Page incinerated in a steel drum. Ashes scattered like moms. Gideon, hearing of the bust, attempted suicide in his cell, slit wrists, but survived. Vegetative. Justice? Debatable, some called it karma. Others cruel. Ending unfolded in fragments. Harlan's bill passed. A quiet win amid scandals. Mark, we talked. Raw over coffee, no reconciliation. But closure. His apologies tasting like belated grace. The bookstore? I kept it, not for profit, but sanctuary, nights reading aloud to empty rooms. Voices of Austen and Orwell chasing shadows. But the lingers. Was revenge cathartic? Or just a mirror reflecting my own darkness?
Gideon stole bodies.
But I wielded them, coercing Tessa, brawling in shadows, leaking lives to the press. Hero? Villain? The line blurs in America's funhouse, where power's the ultimate swap. Readers feud online. Allison's arc, redemption or rationalization? I scroll sometimes. Anonymous. Heart-twisting. Inheritance taught me, secrets don't bury easy. They swap. They bind. They demand due. And in the quiet, with rain pattering the windows, I wonder who's really wearing whose skin.